Some people say that love finds you when you least expect it, that the right person will come along at the right time, that everything happens for a reason. I used to believe that, until I watched my best friend spend 3 years chasing someone who never loved him back, until I got my first kiss from a girl I barely knew while his heart was breaking 10 feet away. My name is Andreas, and I'm 23 years old. This is the story of a summer that changed everything. A story about love, friendship, heartbreak, and the cruel randomness of who we fall for and why. But mostly, it's Peter's story, and Helen's. And somehow it became mine too. Let me take you back to the beginning. Back to when we were just kids who thought love was simple. I met Peter when I was 14. We were in the same class at school in Athens. He was the new kid, transferred from a different district. Quiet, kind of shy, but funny once you got to know him. We became friends quickly. We had the same taste in music, the same terrible sense of humor, the same habit of staying up too late playing video games. Peter was from Athens like me, but his family was originally from Lamia. His grandparents still lived there, in a small village in the countryside. And every summer, every holiday, Peter's family would visit. I loved hearing about those trips. The way Peter described the village made it sound like another world. Rolling hills, olive groves, narrow streets where everyone knew everyone. A place where time moved slower. It's different there, Peter would say, his eyes distant. People actually talk to each other. They sit outside and drink coffee for hours. There's no rush. I'd never been anywhere like that. I'd lived in Athens my whole life. Concrete and crowds and constant noise. The idea of a quiet village sounded almost magical. But Peter's favorite stories weren't really about the village itself. They were about the people there. Specifically, they were about Helen. Helen was the best friend of Peter's cousin, Dora. They'd grown up together in the village, and from the first time Peter mentioned her name, I could tell she was different from all the other girls he talked about. "She's not like the girls here," he'd say. "She's real, you know? No games, no pretending to be something she's not." This was when we were 15. Peter had met Helen during a summer visit. They'd hung out a few times in a group. Nothing had happened between them. But Peter was hooked. He talked about her constantly. The way she laughed, the way she didn't care what people thought, the way she made him feel comfortable just being himself. "I think I'm in love," he told me one night when we were hanging out at his place. "Dude, you've known her for like 2 weeks," I said. "I know, but I just feel it. Like she's the one." I laughed. We were 15. What did we know about the one? But Peter was serious. Dead serious. From that point on, Helen became a constant presence in Peter's life, even though she was hundreds of miles away. They started texting. Every day. For hours. Peter would be on his phone constantly, grinning at messages only he could see. "What are you guys even talking about for 3 hours?" I'd ask. "Everything," Peter would say. "Music, books, what we want to do with our lives." She gets me, man. She really gets me. I was happy for him. Kind of. But also a little worried. Because Helen lived in Lamia, Peter lived in Athens. They saw each other maybe twice a year, for a week or 2 at most. "What's the plan?" I asked him once. "Are you guys going to date?" "Eventually," Peter said confidently. "When the time is right, we're building something real first. A real connection." Years went by like this. Peter and Helen texting constantly. Peter visiting the village whenever he could convince his parents. Peter turning down girls at our school because there's someone else. Girls liked Peter. He was good-looking, funny, kind. Several girls asked him out over the years, but Peter always said no. "I'm not available," he'd tell them. "There's someone else." "But you're not dating her," I'd point out. "Not yet, but I will be. I know it." I admired his certainty, but I also worried about him. 3 years is a long time to wait for something that might never happen. By the time we were 18, Peter had been in love with Helen for 3 years. 3 years of texting, of summer visits, of building up this idea of what they could be together. But they still weren't together. They'd never even kissed. "Why don't you just tell her how you feel?" I asked him more than once. "I am telling her. Every day. She knows." "But have you actually said the words? I like you. I want to be with you." Peter would get defensive. "It's not like that with us. We don't need to rush things with labels. We have something deeper." I didn't push it. Peter was my best friend. If he wanted to believe that his relationship with Helen was something special, who was I to tell him otherwise? Then everything changed. It was the summer after we graduated high school. We were 18, about to start university in the fall. Peter was planning his usual trip to Lamia, but this time Dora was coming to Athens first, and she was bringing Helen with her. Peter was over the moon. He talked about it for weeks before they arrived. "This is it," he said. "Helen and Athens. Away from the village, away from everyone who knows us. Just us. I'm going to make my move." "What's the move?" I asked. "I'm going to take her on a proper date. Show her Athens. Show her who I really am. And then I'm going to tell her how I feel." "Good," I said. "It's about time." Peter had it all planned out. He'd mapped out the perfect date. A walk through Plaka, coffee at this place with a view of the Acropolis, dinner at a nice restaurant. I'd never seen him so excited. Or so nervous. The day Dora and Helen arrived, our whole friend group went to meet them. Peter had told everyone. About Helen. We were all curious to meet this girl who'd captured our friend's heart for 3 years. Helen was pretty. Long brown hair, warm smile, easy laugh. She seemed nice. Normal. Not the mythical figure Peter had built her up to be in our minds, but that was probably impossible anyway. And then there was Dora. I'd barely heard about Dora. She was Peter's cousin, so she existed in the background of his stories, but Peter only ever talked about Helen. I knew basically nothing about her. Dora was tall, really tall. At least 4 inches taller than me, which is saying something because I'm not short. She had long black hair with these bangs that covered her forehead, dark eyes, a confident way of moving that made her stand out. When Peter introduced us, Dora looked at me for a long moment. "So, you're Andreas," she said. "Peter's best friend." "That's me," I said. "I've heard a lot about you." That surprised me. "You have?" "Of course, Peter talks about you all the time. You're basically all he talks about besides Helen." She smiled when she said it. Not in a mean way, just matter of fact. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just smiled back. We all hung out that day, the whole friend group, plus Dora and Helen. We walked around the city, showed them some of the spots we liked. Peter stuck close to Helen the whole time. I could see him trying to make her laugh, trying to create moments, trying to build up to asking her on that date he'd been planning. Dora walked next to me most of the day. She asked me questions about Athens, about school, about what I wanted to do with my life. She was easy to talk to, direct in a way that was refreshing. "Peter says you're smart," she said at one point. "Top of your class." I shrugged. "I do okay." "Don't be modest. Peter says you're going to study engineering." "That's impressive. What about you?" I asked. "What do you want to do?" "I'm not sure yet," she said. "Maybe teaching. Maybe something with art. I like working with kids." We talked for a while about different paths, different dreams. It was nice. Easy. The kind of conversation where you don't have to try too hard. I wasn't paying much attention to what Peter and Helen were doing. I was focused on my conversation with Dora, but I should have been watching. Because that's when everything started to go wrong. John was part of our friend group. Good guy, friendly, popular with girls. He'd come along to meet Helen and Dora like everyone else. And apparently Helen noticed him. I didn't see it happening. I was too busy talking to Dora. But later, Peter would tell me how he'd seen Helen watching John, how she'd laughed extra hard at his jokes, how she'd found excuses to talk to him. At the end of the day, Peter finally worked up the courage to ask Helen on that date he'd been planning. "Tomorrow," he said. "Just the 2 of us. I want to show you Athens properly." Helen hesitated. Just for a second. But Peter saw it. "Sure," she said, finally. "That sounds nice." But her voice didn't match her words. Peter heard it. I heard it later in how he described it. The lack of enthusiasm, the politeness instead of excitement. Still, they had plans for the next day. Peter went home that night nervous but hopeful. This was his chance. 3 years of waiting, about to finally pay off. The next day I got a text from Peter. Date didn't go well. At the beach with everyone. Come hang out. I felt bad for him, but also curious about what had happened. So I headed to the beach where everyone was hanging out. When I got there, the dynamic was immediately clear. Peter was sitting alone, looking miserable. Helen was talking to John, laughing at something he'd said. And Dora was sitting a little apart from everyone, watching me approach. I sat down next to Peter first. What happened? She's not interested, Peter said flatly. I could tell the whole date. She was polite, but that was it. She doesn't feel the same way. Did she say that? She didn't have to. I know. I didn't know what to say. What do you tell your best friend when the girl he's been in love with for 3 years doesn't love him back? I'm sorry, man, was all I could manage. Peter just nodded. He looked empty, like someone had scooped out everything inside him. I'm going for a walk, he said, standing up. I watched him go. Then I felt someone sit down next to me. It was Dora. He'll be okay, she said quietly. Eventually. You knew? I asked. That Helen didn't feel that way? Dora nodded. I tried to tell him, gently, but he didn't want to hear it. He was so sure that if they just spent time together, if she just got to know him better, she'd fall for him. That's rough, I said. It is, Dora agreed. But you can't force feelings. Helen likes him as a friend. That's it. She can't help who she's attracted to. We sat in silence for a moment, watching the waves. You're a good friend, Dora said, sitting with him. Being there, he'd do the same for me. I know. That's what Peter says, that you're the most loyal person he knows. I looked at her. He really talks about me that much, all the time. You're important to him. Something shifted in that moment. I became aware of how close Dora was sitting, how she was looking at me, the way the sunset light hit her face. Walk with me? She asked. We stood up and started walking along the beach, away from the group. I should tell you something, Dora said. I don't normally do this. I'm not usually this direct. Do what? She stopped walking and turned to face me. I've wanted to meet you for 2 years, since Peter first started talking about you. I kept asking him to bring you to Lamia, but you never came. I didn't know I was invited. You were. Always. I told Peter to invite you, but I think he wanted to keep his time with Helen separate from everything else. Why did you want to meet me? Dora smiled. Because Peter made you sound interesting. Funny, kind, real. And I wanted to see if you were all those things. And you are. Before I could respond, before I could even process what was happening, Dora leaned in and kissed me. My first kiss. I'd been 18 years old and had never kissed anyone. Too shy, too focused on school, too much of a late bloomer. But now, suddenly, I was kissing a girl I'd known for one day. It was brief, soft, over almost before it started. When she pulled back, Dora was smiling. Was that okay? Yeah, I managed to say. That was, yeah, good, because that was my first kiss too. We both laughed. Nervous, excited laughs. We kept walking, talking, laughing. Eventually, we ended up sitting on the sand, far enough from the group that we had privacy but close enough to still see them. Dora told me about growing up in Lamia, about the village, about her friendship with Helen, about wanting something more than small-town life. I told her about Athens, about my plans for university, about feeling like I was on the edge of something big but not knowing what. And we held hands, and I played with her hair, and she played with mine, and it felt easy and right and unexpected. I wasn't thinking about Peter. I should have been, but I wasn't. I was too caught up in this moment, in this girl, in my first real romantic experience. Then I saw John walking over to where Peter was sitting. I watched from a distance as John said something to Peter. Watched Peter's face cycle through emotions. Confusion, realization, disbelief, anger, hurt. What's happening? Dora asked, following my gaze. I think John is asking Peter's permission to make a move on Helen. Dora's eyes widened. Oh no. We both watched as Peter responded. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I could see his body language. Stiff, defensive, hurt. John said something else. Peter stood up. For a second, I thought they might fight. But then Peter just walked away. Again. Down the beach, into the fading light. Should I go after him? I asked. Give him some time, Dora said. He needs to process this. That's brutal, I said. 3 years. And Helen picks a guy she just met over him. It happens, Dora said softly. Attraction isn't logical. It's not fair. It just is. I felt guilty suddenly. Here I was, having this great moment with Dora, while my best friend's heart was breaking. I should go check on him, I said, starting to stand. Dora caught my hand. In a minute. Let him have some space first. Trust me. So I sat back down, and I tried not to think about Peter. Tried to just be present with Dora. But I felt it. The guilt. The discomfort. The sense that something was wrong with this picture. Eventually, Dora and I walked back to the group. Peter had returned. He was sitting far from everyone, staring at the ocean. Helen and John were talking, closer than before. You could see the chemistry between them, the way they leaned toward each other, the way they smiled. And Peter saw it too. I could see him watching, to them. Watching everything he'd wanted slip away. I sat down next to him. Dora went to talk to Helen. "You okay?" I asked. Peter laughed bitterly. "Do I look okay?" "No, you look like shit." "I feel like shit." "John's an asshole for doing that," I said. "He asked first," Peter said. "He followed bro code. He asked my permission." "What did you say?" "What could I say?" "No, you can't talk to the girl I've been in love with for 3 years, even though she clearly likes you?" I'd look pathetic. "You're not pathetic. I feel pathetic. I wasted 3 years. 3 years texting, calling, visiting. 3 years thinking we had something special. And it turns out she never felt that way. She was just being nice, being a friend. I didn't know what to say. Everything felt hollow. Any comfort I could offer would just be words. "I saw you with Dora," Peter said after a moment. "Looked like it went well." "Yeah," I said. "She's cool. She's been asking about you for years." "Did she tell you that?" "She mentioned it. She showed me pictures of you from your social media, asked me a million questions. She's had a crush on you forever." "Really?" "Yeah. I tried to get you to come to Lamia, but you always had some excuse." "I didn't know." "I know. That's my fault. I was too focused on Helen. I didn't think about setting you guys up." We sat in silence for a while. "I'm sorry," I said finally. "About Helen. About all of it." Peter shrugged. "Not your fault. Can't force someone to love you back." But I could tell he was destroyed. 3 years of hope, of building up this fantasy, all crashing down in one day. The rest of that week was awkward. Helen and John started dating. Like officially. They were together all the time, doing couple things, completely wrapped up in each other. Peter had to watch. We all did. But especially Peter. Dora tried to keep him distracted. We all did. But you could see it eating at him. The rejection, the replacement, the feeling that he'd wasted years on something that was never real. Peter and John had it out one night. Not a physical fight, but a real argument. Peter said things about John moving in on Helen. John said things about Peter needing to let go. It got ugly. There were words that couldn't be taken back. For a while, I thought their friendship was over, thought our whole friend group might fracture. But eventually, they talked it through. John apologized for the way he'd handled things. Peter apologized for making Helen into something she wasn't. They made up. Sort of. It was never quite the same between them, but they stopped being hostile. Helen and Dora went back to Lamia after 2 weeks. Helen and John tried to do the long-distance thing for a while, but it didn't last. They broke up after a few months. Peter took a long time to get over Helen. Months. Maybe a year. He'd still mention her sometimes, wonder what she was doing, talk about what-if scenarios, but eventually he moved on. Started dating other ficken people. Found a girlfriend in university who actually loved him back. He seems happy now. Or at least happier. But I think part of him will always wonder about Helen. Always carry that what if. As for me and Dora, we stayed in touch after she left. We'd text sometimes. She'd send me pictures from Lamia. I'd tell her about university. We saw each other a few more times over the years. Holiday visits, summers. We'd pick up where we left off, like no time had passed. We never officially dated. The distance made it impossible. But there was always something there. Something unfinished. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Dora lived in Athens, if we'd had the chance to really try. But that's life, isn't it? Full of almosts and maybes and timing that's just slightly off. I think about that summer a lot, about how one day changed everything. How Helen chose John over Peter after 3 years. How I got my first kiss while my best friend's heart was breaking. How love is random and unfair and doesn't follow any rules we think it should. Peter chased Helen for 3 years, did everything right, was patient, was kind, built a connection, and it didn't matter. She didn't choose him. John met Helen once and she fell for him immediately. No build-up, No years of texting, just instant chemistry. Why? What makes us attracted to one person and not another? What makes someone worth 3 years of your life when they'll never love you back? I don't have answers. I'm 23 now, still figuring it out. Peter is doing well. He graduated university, got a good job, has a girlfriend. He talks about the way he used to talk about Helen. Maybe this one will work out. Dora is still in Lamia. She became a teacher, like she thought she might. She sends me pictures sometimes of her students, her life. She seems happy. Helen, I don't know. I don't ask about her. It feels like looking back at something that should stay in the past. But I learned something from that summer, from watching Peter chase someone who would never chase him back. Love isn't about effort. It's not about deserving someone or wanting them enough. You can do everything right and still lose. Because the heart doesn't work on logic. It doesn't reward patience or kindness or years of devotion. It just feels what it feels. Randomly, unfairly, without explanation. Peter deserved to be loved back. He really did. He was a good guy who genuinely cared about Helen, but she didn't love him, and there's nothing he could have done to change that. That's the hardest lesson. That love isn't something you can earn or work toward. It either exists or it doesn't. And sometimes the person you'd wait 3 years for wouldn't wait 3 minutes for you. That's life. A love chased but never gotten. A first kiss stolen while your best friend's dreams die. Random and beautiful and cruel all at once. I don't know if there's a moral to this story. Maybe it's just what happened. A summer when everything changed, and nothing worked out the way anyone expected. But I remember it. All of it. The good and the bad and the complicated in between. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder about all the different ways that summer could have gone. All the choices that could have changed everything. What if Peter had never told Helen how he felt? What if Helen had chosen him instead of John? What if Dora had kissed someone else? But that's the thing about life. It only happens one way. You don't get to see the alternate versions. You just get the one you lived, and this is ours. Peter's heartbreak, my first kiss, Helen's choice, all tangled up together in one messy, unfair, unforgettable summer. A love chased but never gotten. That's Peter's story. But maybe it's all our stories, in one way or another. Because who hasn't chased something they can't have? Who hasn't wanted someone who didn't want them back? That's just part of being human, part of being alive. The hoping, the chasing, the waiting for, something that might never come. And maybe the real story isn't about getting what you want. Maybe it's about what you do after you don't get it. Peter picked himself up. He moved on. He found happiness somewhere else. That takes courage too. Maybe more courage than the chasing ever did. Years have passed since that summer, and I've had time to think about what happened, to understand it better, to see patterns I couldn't see when I was 18. I've watched Peter fall in and out of love a few more times. Each time, I can see echoes of that summer with Helen. The way he gives everything too quickly, the way he builds people up in his mind, the way he confuses potential with reality. But he's getting better at it, learning, growing. His current girlfriend, Maria, is good for him. She's straightforward, doesn't play games, tells him exactly how she feels. There's no guessing with her, no 3 years of wondering. I asked Peter once, a couple of years after that summer, if he ever regretted those 3 years with Helen. I don't know, he said. Part of me thinks I wasted my time, but I also learned a lot about myself, about what I actually want versus what I think I want. Do you still think about her? Sometimes, not like I used to. Now it's more like remembering a dream, something that felt real at the time but fades when you wake up. That's deep, man, he laughed. I've had a lot of time to think about it. That conversation stayed with me, because Peter was right. Helen didn't owe him love just because he wanted it, just because he'd invested time and emotion. Love isn't transactional. You can't put in enough hours and expect feelings in return. I thought about Dora too, over the years, about what could have been if circumstances were different. We kept in touch, like I said, but the distance was always there. Not just physical distance, but the kind of distance that grows when you're living completely separate lives. She'd tell me about the village, about her students, about the boy she dated for a while but it didn't work out, about her family's restaurant and helping out on weekends. I'd tell her about Athens, about engineering school, about the internships I got, about the city life that she'd always wanted to escape to but never did. We were living in different worlds. And with each passing year, those worlds drifted further apart. The last time I saw Dora was 2 years ago. I was 21, she was 20. Our friend group had planned a reunion in Lamia. Peter finally convinced me to come. I was nervous about seeing her. It had been 3 years since that summer. 3 years of occasional texts and rare video calls. 3 years of life happening to both of us separately. When I saw her, my first thought was that she looked the same. Still tall, still confident, still had those bangs I remembered. But she was different too. Older, more settled. Like she'd figured out who she was while I was still trying to figure out who I might become. We hugged. It was warm but slightly awkward. The kind of hug between people who used to mean something to each other, but aren't sure what they mean now. That weekend was strange. We spent time together, walked around the village, talked about old memories, but there was this gap between us. This awareness that we'd become different people. On the last night, we sat on a wall overlooking the olive groves, watching the sunset. "Do you ever think about that summer?" Dora asked. "The kiss summer?" "Yeah, sometimes." "Me too. It feels like a lifetime ago." It kind of was. We were different people. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd moved to Athens? Or if you'd stayed here? I thought about it. Sometimes. But I don't think it would have worked out anyway. Why not? Because we wanted different things. You wanted someone who could be part of your world here. I wanted someone who could be part of my world there. We were always going in different directions. Dora nodded slowly. You're probably right. It's nice to think about, though. The what-ifs. Yeah, it is. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. "I'm seeing someone," Dora said eventually. "His name is Nikos. He's from here. He works with his family's farm." "That's good. I'm happy for you." "Are you seeing anyone?" "Not really. I go on dates sometimes, but nothing serious. I'm focused on finishing school right now. Always the responsible one," she said with a smile. "Someone has to be." When I left Lamia that weekend, I knew it would probably be the last time I saw Dora like this. The last time we'd have this connection, however faded it had become. We still text occasionally. Happy birthday messages, congratulations when something good happens. But it's surface level now. Friendly, but distant. And that's okay. Not every connection is meant to last forever. Some people come into your life for a season, teach you something, give you something, and then naturally drift away. Dora gave me my first kiss. My first real romantic moment. My first taste of what it felt like to be chosen by someone. That was enough. That was her gift to me. Just like Helen, in her own way, gave Peter something. Not love, but a hard lesson about the difference between fantasy and reality. About the importance of someone actually choosing you back. That summer taught all of us something. About love, about timing, about the way things work out or don't work out. Peter learned that 3 years of hoping doesn't guarantee anything. I learned that first kisses can happen when you least expect them. Helen learned that chemistry matters more than history. John learned that timing is everything. Dora learned that crushes from afar don't always translate to something real. We all learned that love is messy and unfair and doesn't follow any script we might write for it. Now, at 23, I look back at that summer with a mix of fondness and cringe. Fondness for the good parts. Cringe for the painful parts. But mostly, I'm grateful. Grateful that I got to experience all of it. The good and the bad. Because that's what made me who I am now. I'm more cautious about love now than I was then. I don't fall as easily. I don't build people up in my mind before I really know them. I don't confuse texting someone for hours with actually connecting with them. I've learned to pay attention to actions, not just words. To chemistry, not just compatibility on paper. To what is, not what could be. Peter taught me that, by example. By showing me what happens when you chase potential instead of reality. Peter and I are still best friends. We live in the same city again. We hang out at least once a week. We talk about everything. He knows about my dates that don't go anywhere. I know about his relationship with Maria. We give each other advice, sometimes good, sometimes terrible. And once in a while, late at night after too many beers, we'll talk about that summer. "Do you think Helen ever thinks about me?" Peter asked once. "Probably not, man. I don't think it meant the same thing to her that it meant to you." "Yeah, I know. It's just weird to think that something that shaped my whole understanding of love was probably just a minor blip in her life." We laughed. And then we talked about something else. Because that's what you do. You don't stay stuck in the past. Helen is still in Lamia, I think. I heard she got married last year. Peter sent her a congratulations message. She replied with a thank you, and that was it. Clean, simple, no drama. John is still part of our friend group. Things were weird for a while, but time heals most things. Now Peter and John joke about that summer. Remember when you stole my girl? Peter will say, laughing. She was never your girl, man. John will respond, also laughing. That was the problem. And everyone laughs because enough time has passed that it's okay to laugh now. I think that's another lesson from that summer. That time really does help. Time puts distance between you and the pain. It gives you perspective. From here, 5 years later, that summer looks different, smaller, less dramatic. Just a bunch of 18-year-olds figuring out love and getting it wrong and surviving anyway. Because that's all it was. We survived. Peter survived his heartbreak. Helen survived being the object of someone's obsession. John survived being the unexpected third party. Dora survived her crush not working out. I survived the guilt and confusion. We survived and we grew and we learned and we moved on. Peter's 3-year chase of Helen taught him that love requires 2 people to work. My first kiss with Dora taught me that chemistry is different from compatibility. Helen's choice of John taught everyone that attraction is random. These are lessons we might have learned eventually anyway. But we learned them that summer, on that beach, in that specific, painful, and beautiful way. And now, years later, I can look back at it with gratitude instead of pain. So this is my story. Our story. A summer in Athens, when love was complicated and hearts got broken and nothing worked out the way it should have. But we all survived it. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's the only story anyone really has. Not about getting what you want, but about surviving when you don't. A love chased but never gotten. Yeah, that's life. For Peter, for Helen, for all of us. And somehow, we keep going anyway.